of verifying safe cities in the major cities in their countries. So members and ambassadors are going to get involved much. So if you're interested in this program, kindly show by raising up your Black Fist in the chat room. Will let you know when the program starts. So there will be lead ambassadors who will be organizing these places, and also you get assistance to other ambassadors are giving you the safe places so that you can use the application. And also the developers are in the middle of working through the application, enhancing it to be bigger, better, and to go viral as planned. Yes. And again, we did have the demographics. I'm not so sure if you have it. Maybe you present the demographic after Elijah, and whilst we're waiting for other speakers to join as well. For our 23, in terms of our numbers, how many we are, and also we need to know how many people are in this Pan-African organization. Yes, Brother Elijah, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Awad Ngwenya.
All right. Yeah, you can go ahead, introduce yourself, and give us the presentation for today. Again, I think you had a lot of network. I'll reach out to you on WhatsApp regarding the ambassador program, which is going to start soon, so that you help us again as the lead ambassador in Kenya in organizing the safe places through our app, which is being developed by developers right now. Again, without wasting time, I'd like you, Brother Elijah, to pray in your indigenous language, which you normally, which is largely spoken in Kenya. After that, you start off the speech. Yes, I think Brother Elijah is having some network challenges. Let us try one more time and see if you'll be able to present. If he's not, we're going to move forward. Yes, Brother Elijah. Are you able to present right now?
It seems I have a network problem. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Okay. Today we are going to talk about effect of slave trade in Africa. I'm very much delighted to participate on this week's topic about the effect that were brought about by the trade of Black people by the European. First, let's understand the meaning of slave trade is the procurement, transporting, and selling of human beings as slaves, in particular, the former trade in Black Africans as slaves by European countries and North America. Indeed, the devastating effect of slave trade in Africa promoted lawlessness and violence between those who were resisting it and those who promoted it, who are the Europeans. We say a peaceful community is a productive community. Slave trade promoted fear of captivity and made economic and agriculture development impossible in Africa. A large percentage of people who were taken as slaves were women, children, and young men who normally would have been starting families and developing the community, leaving behind elderly and people living with disability who are not able to contribute to the economic health of their societies. The distinguishing feature of the modern transatlantic slave trade, it is a total dehumanization of slave. This continued for 4 centuries and paved the way for the colonization of Africa. Africans were considered no better than cattle or chattel. Black people, this means that Black people had no value. They were lesser being to the European. Finally, today, the descendants of slave trade deal with horrific racism. This has led to the rise of the movement like I Love Black People that are creating a global network with the aim of protecting Black people from racism and xenophobia. Our aim as I Love Black People is to help the Black people wherever they are that they are treated with dignity and respect. Because of time, let me give a chance to another spokesperson to talk about the effect of slave trade. Next week, I'll talk about the positive effect. Today, I only researched on the negative effect of slave trade. The author is Elijah Nyabuti from Kenya. I am because we are.
I am because we are. Thank you so much, Brother Elijah Nyabuti. We appreciate you. Thank you again for presenting on today's session, the first session for the Pan-African History class for the 2023. We do appreciate you so much. Thank you. See you again next week as we go further on our discussions as well. Again, next we're going to have our brother Emmanuel to present on today's topic. Yes, Brother Emmanuel, hopefully you can hear us now in your stable network. You can unmute yourself. Can you hear me?
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right, y'all. Good afternoon to you all. Over here in Ghana, it's still late afternoon, and I'm actually glad I'm part of this program. And I look forward to hearing a lot from my co-panelists, even as we delve into the topics presented. Essentially, I'll be talking about African independence, neo-colonialism, and then slavery, and then try to see as to whether 50 years, 60 years after African independence, are we really dependent, or we are so independent? We are independent. So these are the issues of looking at in the economic sphere, political, and then social-cultural aspect of our lives as Africans. So these are the areas I'll be touching on, and then looking at the legacy of slavery and how we can address them collectively as a people. So thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Brother Emmanuel, for being with us today. Hopefully everything is going all right in Ghana right there. Thank you again for being part of us. We're going to further our discussion through those areas of how slave trade affected Africa negatively. Thank you so much for being part of us today. And again, we're going to, I can see other speakers. I think they're having network challenges. Whilst we're waiting for them to join, maybe we can have Yvonne Dushime from Rwanda to just give us a quick presentation about the demographic on how many we are, so that we can start this year knowing on the numbers of the Love Black people, people who joined us, and also those who are in our class, members, ambassadors. Again, I will share on the vision and goals again. Yes, Yvonne, I think you do have the document by you so that you can just quickly run through the demographics.
Yes, thank you so much, Howard. Yes, I have the demographics. Let me just share my screen. Hope you can see my screen.
Yes, we can see a screen.
Yes, as shown here, we are 114,728 total members. It means members from different countries, different continents. Like this is the total number. Then from 135 countries, different countries, not only in Africa, even in Asia and Europe. Then we have 206 financial members. These are like paid members that pay, that we can continue to work. We can also continue to work on the app, to provide all these things. And I will share the link at the end of this document. If you would like to be a part of the paying members, you can just proceed and help us. Yes, with your contribution, we'll be able to do a lot of things, a lot of work regarding helping Black people and protecting them from racism and xenophobia. And we have 15,540 active members. It means there are members in our WhatsApp groups. We have different WhatsApp groups. We have classes. We have country groups. We also have action groups. We have different groups. So we have 15,540 members in those WhatsApp groups. And you have 56,404 business recommendations. These were the businesses that were shared with our members and ambassadors from different countries, using the app or using the website. But in nowadays, you can just download the app and use it to recommend more safe places where Black people will go and be treated well without facing racism. Yes, so these businesses are from 163 countries and 2,984 cities and towns. We can see that most of the businesses or the safe places shared are from accommodation. Maybe, can you still see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay. Yes, you can see that they are from accommodation category. As you know, in I Love Black People, we focus on 8 important categories in human activities, which are these categories: accommodation, food, beauty, education, health, transportation, finance, and legal. So we still need more safe places in these businesses, in these categories: food, beauty, education, healthcare, transportation, finance, and legal. And also there are cities that we have less safe places. This is a long list. Maybe we are going to share the demographics with the group that you can, if you know someone if you're in a country, but it's not mentioned here, you can still recommend those safe places. But if you have a friend, maybe, let's take an example, in maybe Boston, you can ask them to share safe places from there. In that case, we'll be having safe places for Black people in Boston where we'll be safe. So if you continue, we also have ambassadors. The total number is 36. Most of the ambassadors are from Zimbabwe. And if you're not yet an ambassador, as my brother said, we are about to launch an ambassador program. It's not launching, it's like, I can say, improving. So you can still apply. We will let you know once we start then that you can apply. You can even tell your friends and family to apply, because the more we are, the more we'll be strong, the more we'll be having a lot of actions around protecting Black people from racism and xenophobia. So with the safe places shared, this is how it looks on the map. This is Africa, this is North America, South America, Asia, and Europe. Yes, so if you have any question regarding the demographics, you can just drop your question in the comment section. I'll be able to answer it. And I'm going to share a link that you can even share with your friends and family to join as free members, paid members. I think that's all. Thank you very much.
So Yvonne, can you give us a quick update on when the Green Book is going to be launched? Can you look it out for in a week time or 2 weeks time?
Yes, with the Green Book, we are at the final stage. I think in this incoming week, we're going to launch it, and we will let you know how you can purchase it. And it's very interesting. You should have it. Yes, thank you.
All right, thank you. And also again, those who are in Zimbabwe, our co-founders are going to be in Zimbabwe again. Maybe we're going to have a meetup, and then the usual meetup with other countries. Again, I think they'll resume this year. Stay tuned so that you will have to meet up other members and ambassadors in your own country and the co-founder as well, where we do meet and greet, question and answers, as well as we discuss more about this movement and on what are our visions, mission and goals as well. The co-founder will highlight on those meetups as well. So we should look out for those meetups and also stay active in our nation, in our groups. Most of the members are not on WhatsApp, but if you're on WhatsApp, yes, you just be active and look out for more updates as well. And also through the emails, we always share emails. If you are not receiving any email, just notify us so that you can activate your email address so that you can receive from us and start receiving updates as well. Yeah, I can see Haki say that loves to come to Zimbabwe, always free to come to Zimbabwe. Again, Zimbabwe is going to have general elections this year. I think they will be around in April. So we're going to have elections again this year in Zimbabwe. Those are the updates from Zimbabwe. And also in Zimbabwe and other areas in the Southern Africa, look out for cyclone. A lot of rains are being announced that there will be a lot of rains during this weekend up to 8th of January. So travel safely and stay safe again. Also the COVID-19 is still among us. Let's practice safety measures, make sure that we wash your hands and also put on face masks wherever you are, if you're in a crowded area, because we still have cases of COVID and also deaths are also experienced in some areas due to COVID-19. So let's practice precaution and also adhere to country rules regarding the COVID-19. We all need to be safe this year so that we achieve our goals with happy faces, so no one sick. And also, I would like to let you know that the application, if you haven't downloaded it, just wait for the updated version of the I Love Safe Places app. It will be available on both iOS and the Android as usual. And we're looking forward to have it on the Windows again so that we can use it on our laptops wherever we are. I think that's all. Maybe I was waiting for Nana to join. I saw that she shared the reading materials in the group. Again, if you're not in the Pan-African Youth class so that you can receive this PDF or reach out to Nana Akua on your email address, just drop your number so that you can be able to add you to this Pan-African Youth class where Nana Akua will be sharing the written materials. Yeah, I'm also waiting for Nana to join. I think we will have our brother from Zambia to just give us a quick update on his speech. Yes, brother. I see, Brother David, you didn't join with your audio. We can't have a mic here. Yes, so I think all the other speakers who didn't present today are due to network issues and also due to time. I see we do have Brother David, we do have Brother Ifesnach from Nigeria. They didn't present today, and also Brother Paul. Hopefully next week we will continue with this discussion so that you have a chance to present. So without wasting time, let's cross over to Nana Akua to receive a shout out from Nana Akua. Just switch on your video so that she will see the happy faces whilst teaching us about the healthcare. Yes, Nana Akua, welcome to the first edition of the healthcare class for the year 2023. Yes, you can unmute yourself.
There we go. There we go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Yay. How are you all doing? Shout out to everybody that has their cameras on. I appreciate you. I have tried. I've been online pulling up handouts. Hey, Haki. I have been online pulling up the handouts that I want to go over today. So hopefully it worked. So let's see. So today we are talking about detoxing. So we're talking about how to cleanse the body so that the body can operate at an optimal level. And so we want to be mindful of the more obvious, like cleansing the colon, but even the maybe more so not obvious of other paths of elimination that we need to sometimes focus on. So if you all will let me share the screen. I don't know if it's Yvonne or Award.
Yes, you're allowed.
Thank you. And David and Emmanuel and Haki, thank you all for having your cameras on. I appreciate you. I like to see live faces. And let's see what we got. Okay, so I want to show you this one. This is not on our topic, but I found this handout, so I want to go over this. So last maybe 2 or 3 sessions ago, we talked about herbs and homeopathic remedies, right? And so I found this really interesting chart. So I want to highlight it here. If you remember, and since we're going to talk about the colon as one of the paths of elimination, if you recall, we spoke about how the stool should look, right? What's the ideal shape and formation and consistency of our bowel movements. I like this handout because it combines that chart that I showed, that Bristol stool chart, right? It combines it with the homeopathic remedies that will address the type of bowel that you are having. So if you are having some really severe constipation in type 1, right? And it's separated, it's in lumps, chunks like nuts, there are different homeopathic remedies that are good for that. And they're listed here at the end. So this is alum and mag phos and sulfur and bryonia. These are all good homeopathic remedies for this condition. If it is the opposite, the reverse, and it is severe diarrhea, right? In like type 7, where it's liquid consistency, no solid pieces, sort of runny stomach, as they say in some parts, then these homeopathic remedies here, again, sulfur, thuja, phosphorus, natrium, some of the other remedies, and all of these are their abbreviations. But if you happen to get into homeopathy, I found this very interesting. But just as a reminder, what we want to really be in the category of 4 and 5, right? We want to have smooth, soft, sausage-like stool, right? That's considered normal, right? Whereas you would not need a homeopathic remedy for that. Or even and I said 4 and 5, I meant 3 and 4. Or even if it's sausage-like shape with some cracks in the surface, that also is considered normal. This is how the stool should look. It should be sort of a soft, smooth consistency, some breaks in it, but still solid, not in small chunks or pieces, not completely runny. Okay, so let's go to, oh, wait, no. Resume share. I think it was at the bottom that I wanted to, where is it at? No. Okay, let's start again. So then, since I started with the colon, so now let's go to that elimination organ. These are herbs that help, or I'm trying to make this bigger. I'm trying to multitask. Okay, it's gotta be a way to make this. Oh no, it went back to the other thing. That's no. Colon. I don't know, where's the colon? There's the colon. It's still showing as if I'm showing it. Okay, I did something wrong. Okay, you see colon cleansing, right?
Yes.
I'm just trying to make it bigger. Oh, there it goes. Okay, clearly I hit the wrong thing before and went back to the previous slide. So this is a handout on herbs that help cleanse the colon, right? So we know that there are different foods and herbs that assist in that path of elimination. Most of us focus solely on cleansing the colon, but we know it is important that we have bowel movements every day. Doesn't matter if your norm is not to have a bowel movement, it should be. We absolutely have to move the bowel. We eat every day, we have to eliminate every day. And once or twice a day is okay. If you can manage to do more and still maintain the category 3 and 4 of the normal shape and consistency of your stool, then that is fine. There are some people that will boast about, oh, I go every time I eat, or I go 3, 4, sometimes more times a day. That is okay as long as the consistency is that consistency in that Bristol stool chart that I just showed you, okay? So if you're going 3, 4, 5, 6 times a day and it's outside of those normal categories and it's runny or it's hard pieces, still not normal. Still having a problem with your elimination. So you have to not only keep track of how often you go, but the consistency of the stool that you are releasing. But let's go over a few of the colon cleansing foods and herbs. So listed here, you'll see flax seeds. Flax seeds protect the intestinal flora. That's the good bacteria that's in the colon. 50% of our bacteria is housed in the colon, so it is important that the colon remains clean so that it does not turn into disease-causing bacteria. We know that flax seeds improve the regularity of going to the bathroom without side effects. Another good herb for colon cleansing is that it has it's slippery elm, which is effective for both constipation and diarrhea. Slippery elm is mild. And has a mild taste. It's not one of those kind of harsh tasting herbs, so it is kind of easy to take and add into your regimen. And again, good for balancing the bowel movement. So even at whatever extreme you're at, slippery elm is going to be a good option, whether you're constipated or whether you're experiencing diarrhea. Another herb is alfalfa. This helps to soothe the intestinal tract during a cleanse. So we know, just as alfalfa, and we've talked about this under our herb section, we know that alfalfa is a highly nutritive herb, probably one of the most. I don't know if our last class we spoke about super herbs, right? I should probably create a handout on that. I think I'll do that. So we've talked about superfoods. There are a few herbs that I consider to be super herbs, and that means they are so highly nutritive that they would have the ability to be referred to as super, as great, extraordinary, outside of the norm, where it houses multiple vitamins and nutrients and minerals that you need for the body. Alfalfa is one of those. So in addition to it being full of different vitamins and minerals, it also is soothing to the intestinal tract. Cascara sagrada, this is more of a stimulant herb, but this also helps to strengthen the muscle. The colon is a muscle. A lot of our organs are also muscles. They have certain functions and movements that they have to do. When we have bouts of constipation, the colon usually gets sluggish, right? And the muscle is fatigued or out of shape, so to speak, right? And we have to strengthen it so that peristalsis, the contraction that the colon does when it's normally and actively moving out waste, so that it kind of strengthens and tones the walls of the colon. The lining of the colon can move out the waste from the body as it should. Cascara sagrada allows that stimulation. Fennel seeds, this is also a good herb. It starts with digestion, not so much in terms of moving the bowels, but because it aids in digestion, relieving gas, relieving abdominal pain, it kind of assists in the colon cleansing process. So it's good to add or supplement that into a combination of colon cleansing herbs. Aloe vera, it soothes and heals the intestinal lining. So just as we topically would put this on our skin for burns, cuts, other skin issues, we have previously discussed that aloe vera is also soothing and healing to the entire gastrointestinal tract, right? So aloe serves as a mild laxative. It is great for people who just sort of need a little push. If you have chronic constipation or a severe constipation, aloe alone is not going to be as useful, but using it in conjunction with some other like stimulant types of herbs, like say Cascara sagrada or senna, these are going to, this is going to be a good combination for you. The aloe is something you can usually give children or even people in sensitive states, perhaps women who are pregnant, seniors who are aging and having issues with regularity. Aloe vera juice is very mild. These are the ideal situations to use aloe. Peppermint, this soothes the intestinal tract or the intestinal tubing, the colon. And we know that it also aids in digestion. So I would sort of put this in the category with the fennel seeds. It starts with, in the stomach, it can kind of increase the processing time of digesting food in the stomach and moving it to the intestines. And we know that the small intestines is where the nutrients that are in the foods we eat are absorbed into the body. And then the waste products are then moved on to the large intestines or the colon. Peppermint kind of helps it get to that process, or to that stage, I should say. Chickweed is another herb. This is great for relieving constipation and cleaning out the colon. Chickweed is also considered a refrigerant or coolant herb. So it kind of cools and relieves the body. So it has that kind of consistency. This would be a yin kind of property if we were doing Chinese medicine and talking about yin and yang, but it has a cooling effect, but is good for constipation and using in conjunction with colon cleansing herbs. I had skipped over the spirulina and wheatgrass, since these are technically foods, just like the flax seeds though, really, but most people use flax seeds more as a supplement than a food per se. But spirulina and wheatgrass, these are foods Most people will take in either juice form or powder or supplement form and add to smoothies, sometimes cereals, and maybe people will add them to capsules, maybe not so often, but usually you're eating these, whether it is in a cereal or a soup or a smoothie or something of that nature. But these soothe the tissue in the digestive tract and help the body obtain more oxygen and eliminate non-specific toxins. That's a mouthful. But these foods are highly nutritive foods as well. Both of these foods are high in chlorophyll, they are high in minerals, they're nutritive herbs that also assist in the cleansing, or because they're nutritive herbs, they assist in cleansing, right? And because they are green foods, right? This is how or why they are increasing the oxygenation in the body. Now, at the bottom, they list these herbs that are good for killing parasites. Usually you will find, or probably should find, or add to your colon cleansing regimen, parasite cleansers as well. Walnut hulls, wormwood, clove, tea tree oil, pumpkin seeds, all of these are good herbs and oils that assist with killing parasites. Usually if you live in certain areas where sanitation is not great, if there is farm animals, or even if there is farming of certain foods, and maybe you walk barefoot, or you come in contact with either gardening with your hands, or like I said, without shoes, you are likely to come in contact with parasites. If you eat certain types of meats, sushi, other foods that are maybe undercooked, or maybe just bad food choices in general, again, that maybe have not been properly handled or cooked, you can come in contact with parasites. And I'm sure there may be other ways, right? But those are the probably most prevalent ways. If any of these things exist, or you've traveled to a certain area where, again, the sanitation may not be what you're used to, or you could have come in contact with livestock or on a farm or something of that nature, or again, you eat certain types of foods, parasite cleansing is going to be a good idea. Adding these to any of these formulas are good. You can do them separately. Just know most of these are not going to be your tasty herbs, so they won't be pleasant per se, but very necessary. So let's move to the next path of elimination. So we did the colon, and so now we're going to talk about the liver and the kidneys. So this handout just happens to be sort of together, right? But we know that the liver and the kidneys serve two different functions, but you will find that most I wonder if you can see the pictures. Can you all see the pictures that's running along the bottom of this handout?
Yes.
All right, well, nothing salacious there, but I just noticed, you see my baby. You see my baby child down there. But anyway, and some crystals. Y'all know I love crystals. But anywho, I don't really know how to get rid of that, but that's okay. So in most cases, though, the same herbs that cleanse the liver also cleanse the kidneys. And so here are a few. Turmeric, we've definitely talked about before when we talked about herbs. We've highlighted that and all of the benefits of it, how it is good for inflammation, it's good for the blood, it's good for the liver and the kidneys. This is something that definitely can be added to your daily regimen for a number of reasons. Here we're highlighting the benefits of the liver and kidney cleansing. And this is an Ayurvedic chart. So some of these are not necessarily common or well-known. Ayurvedic herbalism is rooted in India. So some of these are native to, well, I'm assuming probably most of them are native to India, but I'm going to highlight some that are a little more easier to find and use throughout the world. Milk thistle, very popular herb, especially for the liver. Most people will use it for the liver as opposed to the kidneys. This would be one of your #1 herbs to use for the liver. Dandelion, I would also put in that category. And we know that whatever cleanses the liver is also purifying and cleansing the blood, right? So if you are having skin issues, and we'll talk about skin herbs specifically, but in addition to whatever you would put topically on your skin to address skin issues, the way to heal skin issues is from the inside out, and doing herbs that are alterative herbs, which are blood purifying herbs, in addition to herbs that cleanse the liver. This is going to be your way to go. So both of these are great for the liver and the skin. Licorice root. A lot of people will use licorice root for some respiratory issues, but it is also good for the liver and the kidneys. And trying to do that. Now my own little bar down here is hiding what is underneath here. How do I move it up? Oh shoot. That's not what I was trying to do. It'd be nice if all the handouts I was trying to show was showing up at the bottom. But aloe is listed here. We just finished talking about aloe, but know that it's also good for the liver and kidneys as well. And I can't even read what's at the bottom, but let me just tell you some other liver cleansing herbs. Burdock root, yellow dock. These are all also good for the liver. If I had to add to the list for kidneys, and actually I do have another kidney handout, I would add things like uva ursi. Oh, now my, oh, that's a kidney. Looking right at it. Uva ursi, buchu, parsley, cilantro, stinging nettle, marshmallow root, gymnosperma, horsetail. All of these are good for the kidneys as well. And there's some overlapping, right? Because we see the milk thistle listed here. So again, most will do work for both the kidneys and the liver. There'll just be some additional ones that you would do if you were targeting one or the other. But if you're doing a combination and you want to, do both the liver and the kidneys, you could certainly add the milk thistle or the turmeric or the dandelion and kind of be addressing, both of those areas. Now, I don't know if I hit new share. Would that get me back to where I'm going? But I don't know. So this handout here, I created this handout. Me, this person that's not very creative. So I'm kind of proud of it. So there are a couple of things, because I could not find my handout that dealt with the herbs for the lungs. So we're going to try to increase this here so we can see herbs for the lungs, right? There is a different handout, but I could not place my hands on it. So let's talk about the lungs. I mean, I always say when we talk about our stress release and we talk about conscious breathing that, thank God, the lung muscle works both voluntarily and involuntarily. So thank God we do not have to put effort into breathing and thinking about exercising our lungs. But if we do, we get an overwhelming benefit to it. And if the lungs are compromised because of cold or flu season, or because of COVID, or because of a chronic condition like asthma or emphysema or chronic bronchitis, or any number of issues that one might have, These are herbs that can help to strengthen and tonify your lungs. And since we're talking about detox, it will also serve that same purpose. If you are working outside in some environmental toxins, say you drive a bus, a cab, a Lyft, a Uber, or say you work in construction, or you work at a waste management place, or or say you work at a school with germy children, right, that cough and sneeze on you all day. Any situation where you may come in contact with toxic gases that you may breathe in and intoxicate your lungs, these herbs listed here under this lung category will be beneficial to you. Lobelia, peppermint, chaparral, osha, eucalyptus, lungwort, oregano, plantain, elecampane, and mullein are all herbs that are good for the lungs, okay? And while we are here, we might as well increase our knowledge about the liver. There were a couple that I didn't add, right? We mentioned milk thistle, dandelion. I didn't mention artichoke, burdock, yellow dock. Didn't mention ginger, licorice. Licorice, I think, was at the bottom of that other page that I couldn't see. That looked like a picture of licorice. Ginseng, turmeric, garlic, red clover, all of these are good for the for the liver. And again, liver and blood, very similar, cleansers for both. So you see that category there. We've already talked about the colon. That handout did not have senna, even though I did mention it. And ginger, I don't think was on that other handout, but I think we discussed all of the other ones here. The kidney, yes, I think most of these were mentioned, maybe not basil, maybe not marshmallow root. But again, these are all your kidney cleansing herbs. So let's talk about the skin. And I wasn't seeing it when I just briefly looked at the handouts that were quickly available for me to share. So I might as well go over those as well. The skin, we know, is our largest organ, right? It is what usually takes the brunt, either coming into the body or going out. So either toxins being introduced or toxins being expelled or relieved or purged from the body. The skin takes the hit either at the beginning or at the end. And so we have to make sure that we're putting as much effort into cleansing, detoxing, tonifying, really protecting our protectant barrier, our skin. So there are several herbs that are great for the skin: calendula, neem, aloe, horsetail, sandalwood, lavender, rose, turmeric, saffron, chickweed, and nettle. And of course, for different reasons, if you're looking for healing the skin from a cut or a bruise or a scrape or blemish or something, calendula, neem, sandalwood, lavender, these might be more for that. If you're looking to, some anti-aging or some things of that nature, people are usually using rose and saffron and sandalwood for that. If you suffer from rashes and hives and things of that nature, chickweed would maybe be the one or one of the herbs to go to. So it depends, because skin issues will vary. There'll be a number of issues and things that you'll need to use on the skin. And even actually, and if we're talking about healing the skin, I make a herbal healing ointment, and actually there are several things in it that are not listed here. So if, for example, you are suffering with stretch marks, right? Comfrey is a really good herb that handles old scars and marks, like stretch marks or even marks from old scars. blemishes, things of that nature. Trying to think, there's a herb called Heal All that is a good skin healing cream, sort of an all-purpose type of skin cream. But those are just some additional ones that came to mind. I won't go over these other categories, but I am proud of my chart here. This will go in a book that I am working on, but it is mine. So much stuff you can sort of pull off of the internet, but some of it is copywritten. So I made my own handout to eliminate that. So now I need to copyright it, right? So that somebody else can't use it. But so let's see what else I didn't. So I think I covered those, but let's see if I am able to pull up the actual lesson packet. And if it comes up easily, fine. If not, fine. So let me try it. I don't think it's going to. I see where it is, but I can't see it. So I'm not going to worry about it. So what I'll say is, we talked a bit about the passive elimination, but let me just go back a little bit and talk about just the need to detox. That is the section. We'll spend a little more time today on it, and then next week we'll go into some other aspects of it. But I've just strictly focused on the passive elimination. But we will talk more about other ways to cleanse and detox the body, right? So we know there are internal means of doing that. We know that there are external ways of doing that. But we know that the need to detox is present because the body will come into contact with substances, foods, whether food, whether toxic gases, as we mentioned when we were just talking about the lungs, our skin, our bodies will come in contact with various substances that all will serve to intoxicate the body. We also know that things that we consume, if we overdo it with alcohol, if we are in fact on certain prescription medications, if we use other, illicit drugs for recreational use, we know that there are ways that we intoxicate the body. Right? So we don't simply intoxicate ourselves with becoming drunk from alcohol. We can also intoxicate ourselves giving or adding toxins into the body with these other things. It may be using petroleum. Might be an unpopular stance, but I do not like petroleum jelly. Vaseline. I don't know about on the continent, but Black folk here in America, coming up, our grandparents and great grandparents, we used Vaseline, which is a petroleum product, right? But we used it to moisturize the skin, get rid of dry skin, ash, things of that nature. And I'm hoping that our people on the continent are using something more like a shea butter. But here in America, right, we grew up using this Vaseline, this petrol-based product, right? So using things like this intoxicates the body. It clogs up the skin barrier, but then as it is absorbed into the body, it then intoxicates other parts of the body. So then we're compromising our other passive elimination. So then we're causing the other organs to be overworked. Or it could be that we are intoxicating ourselves with sodas or sugars, different types of foods and drinks that we may have as part of our daily diet. Foods that are full of artificial colors, artificial sweeteners, excessive fats like trans fats, and oils that are in certain foods. So all sorts of ways. People who are watching their weight, or people who are diabetic, but they fall into the trap of doing sugar-free foods. Well, we know that most foods people are not going to eat if they're not sweetened with some kind of sweetener. The key is to know what kind of sweetener and to avoid what we call artificial sweeteners. So avoiding things like high fructose corn syrup and aspartame and other artificial sweeteners, right? All of these things intoxicate the body. So we have to really be mindful of what we're putting in and on our bodies, because this is causing toxicity and the need to detox. But because it happens, or again, let me take it a little further. Sometimes we can't avoid, because of our work or just the environment, getting to and from work or moving about the world, we'll come in contact with certain environmental toxins, right? But we may be mindful of how we handle money. Money is very dirty, right? Doesn't matter what form of money or currency, what part of the world you're in, that paper money that has moved among thousands of hands and been laid and put and stored in different places is very dirty, right? Handling just certain things, newspaper, newsprint, some of these things have heavy metals in them in terms of how they're made. Certain things that we touch every day, just by the substance that they are made of, have contaminants, have toxins that we then introduce to our bodies. One thing that I've always practiced for myself, and I try to tell my children and everybody, don't touch your face, right? Don't touch your mouth, your nose, your eyes, right? So one thing we sometimes have a habit of doing, whether we're in our homes or whether we're outside, if you're in your homes and your hands are clean, you've come out the restroom, or you have been cooking and your hands are clean, fine. But as a general rule, get out of the habit of touching your eyes, touching your nose, touching your mouth. One of my biggest pet peeves, and this is just my pet peeve, but it'll be helpful to you. If you use chapstick, right? If you use shea butter, heaven forbid, Vaseline on your lips, don't use any kind of moisturizer for your face while you're outside and your hands are not clean. But specifically digging into your little chapstick container and then rubbing it on your lips, are your hands clean, right? That's a way that we cause or introduce toxins into the body, touching, you know, your lips, your mouth, or touching your nose, your eyes, things of that nature. So being mindful of the ways in which we can bring toxins into the body is important. And trying to create habits and routines that avoid those things is going to be key. But in case, you know, you do, or you have introduced those toxins, at least you now know what things you can do to cleanse, you know, our passive elimination, to cleanse the skin, to cleanse the colon, the lungs, the kidneys, and the colon. No, lung, skin, colon, kidneys, you got it. I might miss one there. But we want to be mindful of that, because detoxing means the process of cleansing or washing or ridding the body of some sort of toxic substance, or the neutralization of the negative effects of those toxins. So either we're going to avoid it altogether, right? Or we're going to purge it or cleanse it and get it out of the body altogether. Or something we're going to take is going to neutralize the harmful effects, right? So even if it's there, it's going to get into the body, neutralize it, make it no longer harmful. That is the only way that we can deal with toxins, right? And just as I said that, one thing we haven't discussed when we're talking about detox is activated charcoal. I would like to mention that, because that reminds me in terms of the neutralizing of toxins. So if you've eaten something bad, right, and it didn't suit you, whether it's full-fledged food poisoning or not, activated charcoal is a way to kind of neutralize the effects of that food or that substance in the body, and then help aid in the process of eliminating it from the body. And on every level, we can do that. We can do that ourselves. It's an over-the-counter supplement. Usually you get it in tablet form. Sometimes it may come in capsule form. And even on the hospital level or clinic level, when you go in for food poisoning and things of that nature, or someone that has taken, some kind of substance that is toxic, charcoal is something that's given to kind of neutralize that from the body. So next week we'll talk, and I feel like, because I see a hand up, I feel like if this little box don't go away, I don't know how to get this little box away. And now I can't get to the questions. Oh, there, okay. I clicked on it. Imagine that. Imagine it being that easy. Oh, good question. How can you have the cream I make? Guess it depends on where you live. So I've been making products for at least 25 years. Over the years, and now I more so just teach people how to do these things, right? I do herbalism classes where we, and before COVID, they were in person. But of course, this has exposed us to being able to reach people who are not in your area. So that's cool as well. But I'm used to doing sort of a hands-on herbal making class. And I teach people now how to make products. But there are some products that I kind of continue to make because I do have some regular clients and customers who are used to some of my products. And the one I mentioned is one of those that I do continue to make, my all-purpose healing cream. If you are in the US, it's easy to get it. Sometimes, these people with shipping things to other parts of the world is just not always feasible or cost effective. But if you are interested, you can email me and let me know where you are, and we can see if we can get it to you easily. And again, cost effectively. My issue is just always I don't have a problem shipping anywhere. It's just what happens is just the expense of it. And then whether it'll get there. I've shipped so many things, whether through mail or through, well, usually my shipper, ship on a ship, everything usually gets there. You just have to pay the customs people and pray they don't take your stuff. But sometimes mailing stuff through post, you don't always get it. So that can be a challenge depending on where you are, but feel free to email me about that. And yeah, and I think Award put it, so in the comment above where it says for handouts, he put my email. So the email is there, nanaakua1@gmail.com. Oh yeah, thank you for putting it in again. So we're out of time. Next week, we'll talk a little bit more about detoxing and some recipes and some things that you can take and make yourself. And then we'll talk a little bit about hypertension and diabetes as well. So thanks for joining us. So glad to see all of your beautiful Black faces. And until next week, I bid you good health and peace.
Yes, thank you very much, Nana Akua, for the wonderful lecture. I think it was very interesting according to the comments and also the ones that want to buy the cream. So thank you very much. If there is any other question, they can just drop it and we will share it with you. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Thank you, you too. All right, good day, everyone.
Okay. Yes, we are going to continue with the Pan-African history course with Dr. Wright. Dr. Wright, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay,
Hi.
welcome.
Good, thank you.
Mm.
Good afternoon, good evening in some places. Some of you, I can't see where everyone is. And I just put my glasses away. Okay, here they go. All right, so welcome to the Pan-African History and Organizing course. So this past week, I gave you, during our session, a couple of videos to watch. Kwame Ture, formerly known as Stokely Carmichael, and some history of Pan-Africanism. So you can compare in terms of what we read about the organizing efforts, the collective organizations that emerge, right? And then I also shared with you a short video on Du Bois. Now, I showed you a clip, but I think that you could watch the entire thing as I posted it. And I don't think it was that long, about 7 minutes. Du Bois himself speaking about the Pan-African Congresses, which were continuous congresses that were focused on being the think tank for Pan-Africanism on the continent of Africa. And when you think about that, that's a significant thing, because Du Bois himself actually is based in the United States, okay, and holds the congresses first in Paris. Now you got the document the week before for the first and the fifth Pan-African Congresses. And just to recap, the importance of this, something that you all should know, if you even use the term Pan-Africanism, is this basic understanding of the history, which is that in 1900, there was the first Pan-African Conference, right? And this would inspire Du Bois later on to initiate the congresses, which would be continuous, okay? The congresses. So think of a government, right? A Congress, a permanent body that continuously meets to strategize a particular mission. And so Du Bois initiates, is one of the initiators of the congresses, which are continuous, okay? And what that would mean for the African continent or the continent of Africa is that there would be a space where African leadership would be able to come and continuously strategize around what Pan-Africanism would mean to them in the form of continental unity. And we know that Kwame Nkrumah is one of the forerunners of Pan-Africanism on the continent of Africa. Now, they all have variations of the definition, but more importantly, at the core of all of them, right? All of the various definitions or ways in which one can enact Pan-Africanism, at the core of it is this concept of unity for the purpose of eradicating oppression and exploitation of African people, Black people around the world, right? And so, in other words, I want you to, in a literal sense, think about it in this way. If you and your friends got together, and I said this to all the other previous classes, if you and your friends got together to have a party at your house, would it be Pan-Africanist? Let me see in the comments. I don't usually do this, but let me see in the comments. Who thinks that a party at someone's house where everybody is an African person, a Black person from various places in the world, would that be symbolic of Pan-Africanism? Put it in the chat. Tell me in the chat what you think. Okay. All right. Can I get some more people to write in the chat? But you're all representing various parts of the African continent, maybe even parts of the diaspora. Because you all are representing those places just from being from those locations, does that make it Pan-Africanist? Come on, I need more people to say yes or no. I see a lot of no's. No, no, no. And we've got like 20-some people on here. So can I get a couple? I see 3 people said no. And someone gave a reason why. And that's good. Thank you. You can add a reason why. Let me see in the chat. Okay, good. A few more, not too many. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Are the rest of you uncertain? Okay, good. No, that's not Pan-African, that's Pan-Africanism. Okay. Right. Okay, good. All right. Somebody say no, because we come from a different school of thought. You precisely, right? Now, if we come together for the precise purpose of strategizing around our condition, right? And then acting on it, then it becomes Pan-Africanist, right? We coalesce regardless, right? In other words, we deal with many different people from various backgrounds who are Black, who may be from the African continent, who may be from other places in the diaspora. But that in and of itself does not make it Pan-Africanist just because we're all in one place. We may be in all one place, but we very likely could have opposing views. We could have very different worldviews. We could actually disagree on whether or not we have a common condition, right? So Pan-Africanism is when we consciously come together for the purpose of eradicating oppression and exploitation of African and Black people, which is to deal with our condition, okay? And Pan-Africanism, what I want to drive home to you in this particular session is just the fact that it's not just a thought, it's a thought that is the precursor to action, right? This is why this is an ideological development course. So in other words, the work that you're doing at I Love Black People, you should know why you're doing that work, right? It shouldn't be arbitrary. You know that you are specifically trying to address in big and small ways the condition of Black people, African people, worldwide, because of course this is an international organization, right? So that is a very important point, because very often we think that Pan-Africanism is simply unity, like, you know, hey, everybody is represented here, you know, the African continent, the Caribbean, and the US and other places. That's not enough. So what is significant about each of the proponents of Pan-Africanism that we talked about is that they actually did do something. Now, it doesn't remedy our overall condition, because let's be very clear about something. The issue and the challenge that we face in light of white supremacy and culture, AKA racism, worldwide, is that it does not touch or even attack African people in one area of life, right? So it's not simply in the area of education. It's not simply in the area of healthcare. It's not simply in the area of housing and stability. It's not simply economic, on and on and on. It is actually, it permeates every area of life. So we can have people who are organized and attacking the issue in one particular area of life and not other areas of life, right? So, you know, I think this is an important point, because very often what happens with us on the continent and the diaspora is that we think that there is one singular solution, right? And I always laugh at that, because there might be a common understanding that it has to be addressed, But wouldn't that be great? We're not attacked in only one area of life. We're attacked in every area of life. All of us, in ways we speak about and in ways that go unspoken, are dealing with the ramifications of white supremacy and culture in every area of life in various ways. Okay, it's present, right? Even if you are surrounded by other African people and other Black people, it is present. Okay, if you live in a territory that has been colonized and possibly in a neo-colonial state, if you are in the Western Hemisphere, if you are in Europe, if you are even in Asia, okay, this notion of white supremacy and culture has permeated those societies. It is present, okay? This idea of whiteness as supreme, and this idea of whiteness as the universal human experience when it is not. And so, and basically the idea that we have only one path or one solution is not correct. It needs to be addressed in every area of life. And I do think that that's significant about I Love Black People, because you can work for I Love Black People, be an ambassador for I Love Black People, and you could be focused like the book on healthcare for one particular year, right? Looking at systemic racism in the context of healthcare, okay? One of the notable things that happens in the United States, which is interesting, is that something very normal and natural like maternal health is eclipsed by death because of racism. So Black women in a place like New York City are 12 times more likely to die in childbirth than white women, right? It is so something that is quite natural, and we are very much a part of the rest of the African world in the sense that, in spite of the fact that we have that there is state-of-the-art healthcare and healthcare facilities in a place like the United States, Black women in particular are least likely to benefit from that. Okay, so you can be there, you can have access or be in those spaces and not necessarily get the kind of care. Why? Because racism permeates the thinking of healthcare providers in those spaces, right? So your proximity to whiteness does not protect you. You are still treated as a Black person, as an African person, and therefore getting substandard care that could lead to your death, and has and does regularly lead to death. Another example is that a study was done in Florida. It said Black infants in the neonatal ward 3 times more likely to die if they have a white doctor. They've just been born. They're not even out of the hospital yet. If they have a white doctor, they're 3 times more likely not to survive the initial hospital encounter of being born, okay? Right? And then they did the reverse study. Black babies are 3 times more likely to survive simply by having a Black doctor. Okay, so they could be in the neonatal ward right next to a white baby, but just because of the doctor they have who has internalized the pathology known as racism, their life chances are decreased. Okay, so whether we're conscious of that or unconscious of it, it impacts us all the same. Right? So you could be unconscious of all of these factors, and it's still white supremacy and culture, racism will still decrease all your life chances. Okay, so we can challenge that in areas like healthcare, we can challenge that in education, we can challenge that In terms of economics, we can challenge that. In terms of housing on the continent, challenge that. In terms of the struggle around resources and indigenous rights. But it's not just one area of life. It's not just an economic issue, right? It's not just a healthcare issue. It's not just the education or a housing issue. It is almost universal in its impact on African people and Black people around the world, whether you understand it, whether you have a good perception of it or not. Okay, you just won't know what happened to you, right? That's it. So back to my point. My point is that once Pan-Africanism gets to the continent of Africa, you have proponents like Osagyefo, Kwame Nkrumah, and others who, if you are in the group, you see I posted a film called Cuba and African Odyssey. Now, you should have watched the film already, but this is the point in which I highlight specific people, proponents of Pan-Africanism, who would indeed participate in some of the organizational bodies that I'm going to discuss, right? So out of the Pan-African Congresses emerges a cadre of Pan-Africanists on the continent of Africa, okay? And that body would then produce another organization called the Organization of African Unity, the OAU. Presently, this organization has evolved and has become the African Union. And now this is where we get into qualifying things. And it's a very important point, because what we know today is that the African Union that has produced the African Union that was produced or born out of the OAU, I was looking at the comments, is one, unfortunately, 60% of the funding comes from the European Union. Two, the building, the structure that has been built in Addis and Ethiopia was, does anybody know who built the structure for the African Union in Addis? Write it in the chat if you know. Okay, I see a question, but I'm gonna have to answer that in the end. Anybody know who built that structure? Who donated it to the African Union? Take a guess. What's happening on the African continent? There's an influx of people from a particular place. I wish it was Haile Selassie, I really do. I wish it was Ethiopia's gift to the African Union. Anybody guess? There's an influx of people coming from a whole nother continent and country that have a large influx. I can't even say it throughout East Africa because it's West Africa too. What group of people do you think it is? Representing what nation? Nobody wants to take a stab at it? Yes, the Chinese. The Chinese have built the African Union building in Addis as a gift to the African Union. And that's very interesting. My point of bringing that up is that what we're doing is cultivating our minds to the degree that we can qualify things, okay? So the Pan-African Congresses, continuous congresses, which becomes a think tank for African leadership. Out of it is born the OAU, the Organization of African Unity, where the Pan-Africanists on the continent are able to, in a very focused way, focus on unity of the African continent, right? Not just, many, many different nations on that continent, but talk about continental unity, right? Out of the later on, the OAU evolves and is established as a body called the African Union. The African Union today, 60% of the funding, the last time I checked, comes from the European Union. Okay. A unified, a body that represents European unity. And it is important to understand that it is various European nations that engaged in the scramble for Africa and essentially colonized Africa and are the initiators of neocolonialism in Africa, okay? This is where 60% of the African Union's funding comes from. The present structure in Addis today was a gift to the African Union from the Chinese. So when we get to an issue, and we should be able to qualify things, can the African Union today adequately serve the interests of African people when they are in essence controlled by other entities that are not exactly aligned with the development of Africa as a place where African people benefit the most from what Africa and what African people have to offer? That's a question. You guys can answer it in the chat if you want to. We have to be able to qualify that, right? So when the African Union does something, when the African Union produces something, we have to say, is this to the benefit of African people, or is it just seemingly to the benefit of African people, right? And qualifying whether or not it actually fulfills the needs of African people will let us know whether or not it's truly Pan-Africanist in nature. Just the African Union being the African Union, given the history, does not necessarily make it as a functioning Pan-African body today. We have to remember that, right? It's only if the members of the African Union and all its organs carry out to the highest level and on the lowest levels, business and things that are to the benefit of African people and to fostering our unity so that we can protect ourselves and remedy our condition, right? So this is a very important point. If you didn't watch Cuban African Odyssey, I want you to go back and watch it, because the very first case of a proponent of Pan-Africanism ultimately that is on that film is, or shown in the film, is the case of Patrice Lumumba. Okay, Patrice Lumumba, a young 38-year-old clerk who becomes the prime minister of the Congo post-Belgian rule, is essentially assassinated for trying to unify the Congo, one of the most strategically important places in the world, holds a bulk of the world's resources, holds two very important resources that are used by the military, the US military, and probably other military entities around the world, and that is cobalt and coltan. That being said, Lumumba's position or his tenure as the prime minister would be eclipsed by his assassination and the installment of a puppet government led by Mobutu Sese Seko, and his assassination, not because I said it, but because this well-documented history, was organized and executed by the United States. And the reason is because of the simple fact that with a unified Congo, some of the world's most important resources for military proliferation and would be in the hands of African people who could now decide who they wanted to sell it to, who they wanted to allow to mine it. And Patrice Lumumba had, yes, been in conversation with the Eastern Bloc. Next week, I'll talk about, you know, how other people's agendas have eclipsed Pan-Africanism. But Patrice Lumumba was attempting to forge unity in the Congo and allow the Congo as a unified nation to be self-determining. So it is interesting to see that today, because of the war in Ukraine, you see people having various opinions about Eastern Europeans. And we have a long history, and this is a criticism that I know that you know, some people may or may not agree with me on, but I'm going to say it anyway. Some people are short-sighted because our Pan-African history has very often invoked the Marxist-Leninist view, right? Eastern European revolution view. We tend to think that they are not wholly and completely engaged in this system of white supremacy and culture. Okay, that they, because they have not had the history of a slave society, right? They did not engage in slavery. They were not a part of the scramble for Africa, so on and so forth. But white supremacy spans the world. And so we should be cautioned against overwhelmingly thinking that because people or nations, European nations, did not necessarily engage in the scramble for Africa or did not have slave societies of their own where they enslaved African people, that they are in essence aligned with African people per se, right? If you have been a part of I Love Black People or an ambassador, you know about some of the work that was going on over there because Black people, African people who were in Ukraine were experiencing racism from Ukrainians who were in the midst of a war, right? Initiated by Russia. I mean, they're getting slaughtered, but they still had it in them to be racist to the Black person, the few Black people that were there in their nation, right? So unfortunately, this Cold War, and if you don't know what the Cold War is, the Cold War was, and I guess there still is a second Cold War going on now, but the Cold War was this war, silent war between the United States and the Soviets, Russia, okay? And many African nations, including the Congo, would get caught up or sort of derailed by this, okay? Because now they have to choose, you know, are they aligned with the Eastern Bloc or the Western Bloc? The Eastern Bloc being the Russia and the Soviets, or the Western Bloc being the United States. Neither side is aligned with the best of what Africa needs, okay? But our liberation, our unity is eclipsed in light of these two European powers battling each other. And I'm saying European powers because make no mistake about it, United States is part of, is a European nation. It's a white nation, they would call themselves, okay? It is an expression of white nationalism, okay? That, make no mistake about it. That's a historical fact. So my point is this. One, what you should come away with for today is understanding that coming together is not simply Pan-Africanism. Pan-Africanism is a very focused ideological orientation in the sense that we're coming together with a purpose. We're coming together not only with a purpose, but an understanding that we must remedy and produce something that will address our condition, right? So it's a consciousness that we have a common condition, and it should be followed through with an action that produces something to the benefit, right? Produces something. And we have a hard time around the world with tangibles because we like symbolism, right? We like the aesthetics of things, African people. We do, okay? But we also have to remember to weigh and measure things. Okay, if we get a gift like a building from the Chinese, which is the building for the African Union, we have to weigh and measure who actually benefits more from that. Do the Chinese benefit more from entrenching themselves in Africa? Or do we benefit more from such a gesture? Okay, I would argue a people who are leaving their homeland and coming into Africa and able to entrench themselves and stake claims to land and stake claims to business and resources are actually benefiting more from it, okay, than the African people who live right there on the African continent. But we have to be astute enough to weigh and measure that and not be fearful. I think we also have some level of fear of weighing, measuring things in order to assess whether or not it's to our benefit. It's an exercise that we might have a little bit of an aversion to because of our own history in the world. Okay, so finally, we should be able to make that assessment in terms of organizational bodies, right? In terms of political positions, in terms of national positions. What was the Congo going to do that the United States was so in fear of? They would now be able to be self-determining and decide whether or not the resources that rightfully belong to the Congo would now be in the hands of the Congolese people and be in the hands of leadership that was more focused on the outcomes that were to the benefit of African people than on the outcomes that are to the benefit of other groups of people. Okay. And I'm talking about Patrice Lumumba specifically in that instance. And so he was assassinated. I want to end. So I normally do play a clip from that, but I'm not going to do it. It's still there in the WhatsApp group, the Cuba and African Odyssey. And once again, this is an entry point. Like we've used other films. This is an entry point for assessing what happened in Africa in a particular period of time. It goes through a number of liberation struggles. I'm going to just drop a name, 2 names. We're going to, next time around, I'll be sharing the works of Amilcar Cabral, which allows us to discuss our ethnic differences and how do we come together in order to forge unity when we still have ethnic and cultural and linguistic differences, right? Amilcar Cabral deals with that. And then also, I'm going to probably for the first time pay special attention to Thomas Sankara. I saw somebody mention him in the chat. We're going to deal with the work of Thomas Sankara. I'll be sharing some of his writings and his political position, specifically on women, the role of women in liberation struggles, in the struggle, because yes, whether we like it or not, in the African world, which I'm most concerned about, women are in mass, okay? And yes, the women have been forerunners. Although we very often have male leadership, the women have been the workers, right? The women are the ones on the ground making things move. And even in the context of armed struggle, when we look at a place like Guinea-Bissau, the women, the people are inclusive of women who engaged in armed struggle, okay? It's very important that when we want to develop ourselves ideologically, we don't leave women out because women are the first teachers, right? For everybody who believes in a higher power, God, whatever your particular religious orientation is, the reality is this: your mother, whoever took care of you as a child, was your first God until she told you that, and she informed you that there was something greater than her. Right? So the point is that that's the first transmitter. Women are the first transmitters of values, right? They're the keepers of the values and principles of any given society or culture. And so the role they play in waging struggle and transforming a society is important to deal with. And I think it's a blind spot when we don't deal with it. So I'm going to make sure that this time around in this cycle, I absolutely deal with it. And we'll look at Amilcar Cabral with regard to the women involved in the armed struggle in Guinea-Bissau. And we'll also look at Thomas Sankara and his position on women in the struggle and liberation. Okay. I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to look at the chat real quick. I'm already over. Africa has long been over-exploited. Can our attitude be changed to realize our efforts for it? Yes, we can. Our attitude can change. Like, it's as easy as changing your mind and then working out from there. Oh, I can't see your name clearly, but in Thumb, you have to, yes, so I don't want to mess up your name. The administrators will add you to the group. So can you let them know, Yvonne, can you see the people in the chat saying that they want to be added to the group? I don't know if you have to be added in this cycle or in the next, but in our current situation, how can Pan-Africanism remedy our situation? I said that all wrong, but how can Pan-Africanism remedy our current condition? Well, the idea is that wherever you are in every area of life, what I was trying to say earlier is that, so whenever you're in a position of power, whenever you, and we all have measures of power, okay? Even if it's simply to control ourselves and how we behave. You have to look at whether or not what you do is to the benefit of African people. And honestly, let me be very clear. I don't think it just starts when you are, in a situation where you're not in power or you don't have power over numbers of people. I think it starts on a very formative level, right? Meaning that it starts with your own behavior, even, really. Like what you're doing with I Love Black People, you're making a simple conscious decision to say, hey, this is a safe space for Black people. This is not a safe space for Black people. That in essence is some measure of power, because you are making a decision about where the next person will go or where the next person deems safe for them, okay? Which it might seem like a small decision, but what if you don't do that and the next person goes to a place that is not safe, that you've been to, and they have a very negative experience? And we know that that's a reality, right? Even out here in the diaspora. So being able to do that small step, by the time one rises to power, I really don't believe that if this is not part of your orientation already, that you will overnight adopt this idea that what you do and when you make big decisions or have the opportunity to make big decisions, that you will do it to the benefit of African people first and foremost. If you've always been serving someone else and their interest in going against the interest of our own people, then I think that's what a person would continue doing. And let me just be very clear. One of our biggest issues around the world is that in big and small ways, and sometimes in very small, but sometimes deadly ways, we have been trained to go against or work against the best interests of ourselves and our people. I can't stress that enough. So very often we think that we're so powerless that what we do doesn't matter. And so we will engage in behavior that works against us individually and works against our group, our people collectively. So I don't think that we start up here with understanding that for every action, there's a reaction. And that when we get into that big high profile position or have a little power, you all of a sudden start to work in your and in your group's best interest. I think it starts here and now, understanding that we all have the power to make decisions, big or small, that either work in our best interest or against our best interest, or either work in the best interest of our people or against our best interests. And so I do think that there's a level of orientation, a level of development and training our minds to understand, assess situations and understand when and how our role in situations either work in our interest or against our best interest. Right? I hope I'm being clear with what I'm saying. I think people who, Curtis Murphy, I think what occupations, I think people who are educated in it, right? I don't think a person who just thinks that Pan-Africanism, because listen, a lot of people don't even understand what Pan-Africanism is. They'll just say like, it's just a bunch of Black people who, are hanging out together, right? Which is why I asked the question in the chat. Who should be required to teach it? I do think that you should have had some proper training. So for myself, I've had organizational training. I come from a Pan-Africanist organization, but of course I have education, but it's not my education in the academy that actually makes me uniquely qualified to teach this. It's my education that I got, which was honestly more robust in an organization, a Pan-African organization that prepared me even for my formal education and understanding of not just Africa, but the world and the politics of the world. Okay, so I think that people who have, some level of experience and certainly the knowledge, because this is not something, Pan-Africanism is you should think of it as more like a verb than a noun. Pan-Africanism is not just like a body of people. It's more like an action. Okay. So we should be able to, most early intellectuals, we should be able to decipher or determine, who has had the level of education and experience in that area in order to teach it. Okay. Most early Pan-Africanist thinkers learn towards socialism, right, as likely economic ideology, which can be a solution of people of Africa, which so this is the thing about, so yes, I know this whole conversation around socialism. So I don't have a problem with socialism in the sense that socialism, let me just say this, let me start with this. All of the economic systems and world systems, economic systems have existed before many of the governments that we know that are in existence, okay? So in other words, the practices have been existing for longer than some formulated governments have existed, right? So communal practices in African cultures, social practices in African cultures, even capital and capital ventures in African cultures. However, I think that all of those economic systems have seen corruption in their governmental expressions, right? So what I like to say, because what happens to us is that we can understand these economic systems and these social systems, and then we get unbelievably swept up into being zealots of a particular culture. So extreme, meaning that, you know, many of the continent's Pan-Africanists were also Marxist-Leninists. I think that's a problem. It's a problem, because there's one thing most of us who come out of organizations that have that orientation, one thing we all tend to forget, I don't, but most do, is that Marx and Lenin were not thinking about African people. They didn't even have us on their minds. So we should limit our association and our identification with them. It is more about what is going to serve the interest of African people who are in a particular condition. And our condition is unique to us. So Marxists and Leninists could say it's only a material situation because racially, they don't have a racial issue there. They're all European. They're all, you know, if they were forced to identify by race, they would all be identifying as white. But when you superimpose that on the African continent, that's such a different dynamic. Sure, we're majority Black people. We are Black people. However, we have ethnic variations that are very strong. And so culture becomes relevant for us. History becomes relevant for us. We cannot adopt a view that history and culture cannot be a part of the revolutionary process, cannot be a part of the liberation process. It must be a part of the liberation process for us, of people who were stripped of their culture, stripped of their history, and their history being buried and sort of erased as a means to dominate and psychologically superimpose another worldview on the colonized or on the people. So that it's not a situation where we can just totally adopt a Marxist-Leninist position. I belonged to an organization that was very much Pan-Africanist, but definitely read, studied Marxist-Leninist line and position. I think that's deeply problematic. Deeply problematic. No, just in the same way that one could look at, there are people who think that capitalism is a non-issue. Capitalism in the context of in the history of America is certainly a very big issue, because we can't erase the historical fact that in this newly capitalist paradigm that becomes America, the African body, the Black body, is the very commodity and human fuel of that capitalist society. I always tell my students, you know, in world history, when we start talking about capitalism, they want to say, oh, well, capitalism is good. Listen, there's a difference between free market and competing markets. We had that all over Africa long before Africa ever saw or one colonist stepped foot on the African continent. However, how capitalism manifests in relationship to African people in the Americas is different from simply competing markets. We are the human commodity, and we can never forget that. Never. Okay. So I don't see on either level completely adopting some Western worldview or European worldview to address our condition. Our condition is very unique to us. This racialized pathology has been imposed on the world for the last 400 to 500 years and has presented a very unique situation for us. And I do not think that just simply the economic systems, would be it capitalism, socialism, or communism, all of which in their present forms and governmental expressions. So in other words, the Soviet Union claimed to be communist, but they still had their aristocracy. Sure, they were communal among the masses, right? They were communist among the masses, but their aristocracy was not living the same life. So you see, it's not a true expression of communism. Okay. And likewise with some socialist realities. Okay. They still have their aristocracy. They still have their elite. Okay. So it wasn't a pure form of communism or socialism being expressed. And this is, in terms of capitalism, very corrupt, cannibalic form of capitalism being expressed out in the Western Hemisphere, meaning that capitalism, as it expressed in the Western Hemisphere, consumes human beings. And when it has nothing to consume, it eats itself, meaning the people who thought they were part of that collective society. Okay, it consumes human beings, and literally at its foundations in the Western Hemisphere, capitalism in the Americas is consuming Black bodies. So we can never forget that. And we shouldn't defend any of those systems because all of them have been corrupted in the present governmental bodies that exist, or the large governmental bodies that exist in various nations. Okay, I hope I'm being clear. So I don't defend Marxism, Leninism. I don't defend the early founders of any more than I defend the early founders of the United States who, boasted about capitalism and all of this other stuff. I'm looking to always qualify. And that takes care of, any bias. Thomas Gunkar said that he who feeds you controls you. Absolutely. As long as your funding comes from where there will always be control from. Exactly. And that's just my point by highlighting those things. Of course, right. Because Europeans, as it relates to Africa, African people, African communities, are always seeking to extract what's good for them. So now we've got to think about what's good for us. Right, exactly. Just because somebody said, David said, yes, that would be a mistake. The kind of racism in Russia and China is sickening, even if they were not part of colonization or slavery. Absolutely. They don't get to be absolved. Okay. It doesn't mean that they have not been impacted by white supremacy and culture and this pathology that I call, racism. That is what I consider a pathology. Okay, so right, and anything Europeans do in Africa would be for their benefit, and we need to do what's to our benefit. And I do think that because colonization, slavery, thank you. Somebody said I was clear. Okay, good, thank you. I do think that because of colonization, which yes, had a psychological effect on us. This is why doing this kind of work requires you changing your mind about a lot of things. Okay. And then consequently changing our action, right? Sort of stepping back enough to be conscious and deliberate about what we do and how we move and who it is going to benefit. Because colonization, slavery, all of those things have taught us through motion to act in a way that's not in our best interests, right? It's taught us to act against our own best interests. So now we've got to reorientate ourselves into acting in our best interests, whether that be individual best interest as we relate to the group or collective best interests. That is one of the things that, most of us probably can relate to. we know we're surrounded by other Black people, other African people, and very often in those spaces, we can be together, but we could be working against our own individual interests and against our own collective best interests, harming each other, doing things to each other that in the moment might be gratifying, but in the long run, undo us and serve other people's agendas. Right? So the process of becoming conscious enough to think 2, 3, 4 steps ahead has to be just that, a process. Right? Reorientating yourself, saying, okay, I'm going to move this way. What are the possibilities? What are the outcomes, the possible outcomes? Okay, being deliberate about what you do with yourself and what you do for yourself and others, right? And we all have levels of power. We all do, even if you're only controlling yourself, right? There are times where individuals do things that they think are inconsequential to anybody else. Oh, it's just me. And then they end up feeding themselves into a system that is waiting for them. So they have no plan for themselves, but there's a plan for themselves, but there's a plan for them, right? Meaning, I'll give a very bare bones example of the United States, right? So we have large numbers of mass incarceration of Black people here. Very often, we can do something to another Black person and it puts us in the system. But you think the system, the prisons are not built for Black people primarily? They are. It's a big business. Now you're in a system where you can be a modern slave, be worked for nothing. Okay. And whose interest is that in? That's not in your best interest. That is in the best interest of the system. And the system here, the dominant system, is, yes, white supremacy and culture. Okay, that consumes Black bodies. Okay, so I'm gonna leave it there. I've sort of on a tangent a little bit, but I'm trying to answer some of your questions. Okay, I'll leave it there. Please watch Cuban African Odyssey if you have not already watched it. I'll be sharing readings from Amilcar Cabral. Make sure that when you watch Cuban African Odyssey, you give special attention, of course, to the story of Patrice Lumumba, but also to the little small portion on Amilcar Cabral, because it gives you some understanding where I'm going with our next conversation. Okay. All right. So everyone, thank you so much for committing your time to being here, to engaging in this ideological development, right? And I am because we are. So I will see you all next week and be safe until then.
I am because you are. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day. And also thank you everyone for being with us till the end of this lecture. See you next week again. And also you'll be receiving updates in our groups. Appreciate all of you. Thank you. I am because we are Ubuntu.